a message from the future's past. Chapter 1. The Shadows of Hosh Manor. The hum of the eviction drones was a low, predatory thrum that set Nevis Hosh's teeth on edge. From the porch of the ancestral manor, a sprawling solar glass structure built over ancient stone foundations, 12-year-old Nevis watched the surveyors from Ethelgard development. They moved with clinical efficiency, planting property of Ethelgard stakes into the frost-nipped soil of the front lawn. "It's a digital ghost deed, Dad," Nevis whispered, watching his father argue with a man in a charcoal-grey suit. "The records were lost in the great server purge of '82, the suit replied, his voice amplified by a lapel mic. "Without a physical, pre-digital title or a verified historical land grant, this valley is classified as unallocated frontier. Our claim is backed by the High Ministry." Nevis couldn't stand the sight of his mother weeping over the heirloom roses. He turned and ran toward the Whispering Weald, the dense, ancient forest that bordered their estate. For centuries, the Weald had been avoided by the locals. It was haunted, they said, a place where the wind carried the phantom clatter of steel and the smell of wood smoke from fires that had died 1,000 years ago. As Nevis pushed through the silver birches, his link brace, a standard-issue navigation tool, began to vibrate. It wasn't a digital error. It was a rhythmic, low-frequency pulse that felt like a heartbeat. The deeper he went, the more the air seemed to thicken, turning cold and smelling of ozone and old pine. He reached the U-circle, a ring of stones so old they had sunk halfway into the earth. In the center stood a massive, gnarled yew tree, its roots coiled like sleeping dragons around a rusted, iron-bound chest. As Nevis touched the cold iron, the forest groaned. The sunlight shifted from gold to a bruised electric purple. The shadows of the trees began to move independently of the wind, and a shimmering ripple, like heat rising from a summer road, tore through the air. Through the distortion, Nevis saw a ghost, a man in tattered surcoat and chainmail, collapsing against the same tree in a world of mud and thunder. Chapter 2. The Night of the Silver Rose. In the year 1215 AD, Sir Alaric de Hosh was a man at the end of his strength. He was a Knight of the Silver Rose, a title that meant little now that the corrupt Baron de Malaville had branded him a traitor to seize his fertile valley. Wounded by a crossbow bolt in his shoulder and pursued by the Baron's mercenaries through a torrential midnight storm, Alaric had fled into the thin woods. He collapsed against the great yew, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The forest here was a place of old magic, where the veil between the earthly realm and the heavens was frayed. As he gripped his sword, he saw a vision, a young boy in glowing, seamless garments, standing in a version of the forest that was bright, silent, and strange. "A spirit?" Alaric wheezed, coughing blood. "Have the saints sent a guide for my passing?" Nevis stared at the man. The ghost was terrifyingly real. He could see the pulse in the knight's neck and the wet glint of blood on his tabard. Through the iron-bound chest, which seemed to act as a resonance chamber between their eras, their voices carried. "I'm not a spirit," Nevis said, his voice trembling. "I'm Nevis. I live here. Or I did. They're taking our home, too." "Hosh?" Alaric's eyes widened. "You bear the name of my house. You are of my blood, across the great gulf." Before Nevis could answer, he saw movement in the ghost world. 3 mercenaries, their faces hidden by iron helms, were emerging from the medieval fog, swords drawn to finish the night. Nevis acted on instinct. He dialed his link brace to emergency strobe and high-frequency sonic burst, tools meant for scaring off predators. He thrust his arm through the shimmering ripple. To the mercenaries in 1215, a blinding, multicolored sun suddenly exploded in the darkness, accompanied by a deafening, unearthly shriek that vibrated in their very marrow. Terrified by what they assumed was a divine or demonic intervention, the men dropped their weapons and fled into the storm, screaming for mercy. Alaric looked up at Nevis in awe. "You have the power of the stars, lad. I just have a glitchy watch," Nevis breathed, his heart hammering. "Alaric, you have to help us. The men in my time say we don't own this land. They say there's no proof." Alaric reached into a hidden pocket beneath his mail. He pulled out a lead-lined tube, sealed with heavy red wax. "This is the Royal Charter, signed by King John himself. It grants the Hosh line this valley in perpetuity for service rendered at the Runnymede Meadows. I was to take it to the Abbey, but I will not make the journey." Chapter 3. The Charter of the Bloodline. The forest began to scream. The haunting was reaching a fever pitch as the 2 eras ground against each other like tectonic plates. The iron-bound chest began to glow with a fierce white heat, and the air around Nevis started to spark with static. "The window is closing," Nevis shouted over the roar of the temporal wind. "The chest! Put it in the chest, Alaric. It's the only thing that stays the same." Alaric de Hosh looked at the boy, his descendant 1,000 years removed. He felt a strange peace. He wasn't dying alone in the mud. He was saving his family's future. He kissed his signet ring, pressed it against the wax seal of the tube, and dropped the lead cylinder into the hollow of the iron-bound chest. "Guard it well, Nevis of the future," Alaric shouted. "The blood of the Hosh is the blood of the land." With a sound like a great bell tolling, the rift snapped shut. The electric purple light vanished, replaced by the soft, filtered sun of the modern Weald. The ghosts were gone. The forest returned to its heavy, natural silence. Nevis fell to his knees, his hands shaking as he reached for the chest. The iron was no longer rusted. It looked as though it had been forged only yesterday. He threw back the lid. Inside, resting on a bed of rotted velvet that crumbled at his touch, was the lead tube. The next morning, the Ethelgard investors arrived at the manor with a heavy-duty demolition drone. The man in the charcoal suit held a digital tablet. "Time's up, Mr. Hosh. Please step away from the structure." "Wait!" Nevis shouted, sprinting from the tree line. He was covered in dirt and cobwebs, clutching the lead cylinder to his chest. His father looked confused, but Nevis didn't stop. He broke the wax seal, the silver rose of Alaric's house, and pulled out the vellum. It was thick, smelling of old sheepskin and smoke. He handed it to the lead surveyor. "It's a royal charter," Nevis said, his voice steady. "Signed in 1215. It grants this land to the Hosh family until the stars fall. Check the DNA on the wax. Check the vellum. It's the original deed." The surveyor laughed, but he ran the document under a high-resolution forensic scanner. The screen turned green instantly. Authenticity, 99.9%. Historical registry match confirmed. Lineage link verified. The man's face went pale. A royal charter of that era, physically preserved and DNA linked to the current residence, was the most ironclad legal document in existence. It superseded every digital claim, every corporate maneuver, and every ministry loophole. The drones powered down. The stakes were pulled from the dirt. As the black cars sped away, Nevis's father hugged him, unable to find words. Nevis looked back toward the whispering Weald. The forest didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt like home. Somewhere in the deep silence of the trees, he thought he heard the faint, distant clink of a signet ring against a stone, and a knight finally finding his rest. Thank you for listening. If you like this story, please subscribe for more.